Welcome to the Commercial Kitchen Chronicles, the podcast dedicated to the commercial food equipment repair industry. My name is Pat Finley. I'm a lead master certified technician at General Parts Group and a certified successor trainer. Our goal is to shine a light on what we believe to be one of the most interesting and rewarding industries a field service technician can work in. We love the work we do, and we are glad you listen to this podcast. This episode, we feature Josh Zolin from Blue is the New White, as well as Windy City Equipment and CFESA. All right, what's up, everybody? A little bit of technical difficulties. Someone's Facebook expired.
We call that user error.
Yeah, well, someone's Facebook expired, and I was trying to shove it through and it wouldn't go through. But we are super excited tonight. Everybody's back, and we have a very special guest, Josh Zolin. If you guys don't know who Josh Zolin is, you've been living under a rock in the food service repair industry world. So, Josh has got a pretty cool story. I'm sure we'll get into it. It's in his blood. Another one of those guys that, food service repair industry is just in his blood. He's had a pretty cool life before he got into it, and then started off like everybody else, turning wrenches, and now he's running a really successful company, author, podcast host, and he's got a new venture he's starting up, and he wanted to come on and talk about it, and we're excited to hear about it. I know Rich knows quite a bit about it, and I want to hear what Josh has to say about it. So, what's going on, everybody? What is going on, everybody? Man.
Like I told you, I almost didn't make it, but I made it in the nick of time. But I mean, I've said this a dozen times for anybody who follows my stuff, but Josh, along with Corey Yates, if it wasn't for them two, I probably wouldn't be on my own right now. So I'm definitely looking forward to see what Josh got to say on this episode here.
I mean, I appreciate that, man. I love to help. That's in my blood too.
Yeah, I'm just mad that Jason has an autographed copy for a year, and I'm just now asking for one.
I get what I want.
He jumped right on that, man. He didn't waste any time.
That's funny. No, Jason knows what's up, man. He's a little more open than I am most of the time. I don't know. I'm just kind of a reserved person, and I shouldn't be in some situations. So, but what's going on, Josh?
I don't know, man. You tell me. I told you guys I'm an open book today, right? So I got my drink in my hand. I don't usually do that during podcasts, but you guys are a cool bunch. I know each and every one of you personally now. So I'm looking forward to just having a open and honest conversation about whatever you guys are curious about. And I don't know where you want to start. But I can go as far back as you want, or I could start as recent as you want. You tell me, guys.
Let's just do a Cliff Notes version of how you got to here, and then we can dive into the.
Let's start with where you were before here, and then how you got into here, and then go from there. Yeah.
Yeah, you bet. Okay, cool. So circa 1986. No. So I was actually. Born in California, spent most of my life in Kenosha, Wisconsin. Most everybody who's listening, I mean, maybe or maybe not, they may have heard my story, but the family business was not this trade. Family business was not fixing restaurant equipment. Family business was stunts, right, for the film industry. And that's what my grandfather did, doubled for Charles Bronson, worked with Chuck Norris, Bruce Lee, all those guys. And so all him and all of my uncles were all in the film industry as stunt people, including my mom, right? So she taught the stunt school that he had opened. That's how she met my dad. My dad went through the stunt school, so my dad became a stunt man. This was all before I was even around. So when I grew up, I had a stunt man for my dad and a stunt woman for my mom, my whole family, and that was just kind of the path I was going to follow. So I was the cool kid in high school that would roll cars and light himself on fire. Not a ton of people could say that, but man, it worked out pretty well for me back then. But Cliff Notes version is excuse me. I thought that's what I was going to do, so I was very open about that in high school. Never went to college. Just kind of knew that was going to be my path. To the dismay of all my counselors and everybody, like, you got to go to college, you got to do this. And I was like, I'm going to be a stunt man. Why do I need college? So moved out to California. I did the stunt thing for a while. I had all the family ties. All things considered, I was successful in it. It was even a hard time because it was right during the writer's strike in like 2008, I think, or 2006. So, I was able to get the jobs and stuff. But eventually one day I just kind of woke up and I was like, listen, I I'm not the type of person to just be a crash dummy for somebody who is more important than me. I want to be that important guy. And that wasn't going to happen in the stunt industry because that's just, that's not what it's about. Nobody's supposed to know who you are. And so my dad, kind of simultaneously, he had gotten out of the stunt business when he and my mom split and moved to Arizona and started his own company. He was a foreman of a bakery before that, after he had gotten out of the stunt business. So he kind of had some technical abilities and stuff like that. Came out here because it was warm, and he didn't want to be in Chicago anymore, right? Hence the Windy City equipment. That's where that came from. So he made it out here, and when I was done in California, I called him up and I said, "Dad, I don't know what the hell you do for a living, but I know you can't do it forever, and I want to help, and I know there's opportunity in it, and I don't want to see you on your hands and knees for the rest of your life. Let's do something, just let me build it." And so I spent almost 10 years in the field, even kind of when I was starting off in leadership and stuff like that. And, getting my arms around everything. He was an old school guy. So he was like, "Hey, if you want to be part of this company, you got to learn how to fix this stuff, be a technician before you can be anything else." And the rest was history. I learned how to be a tech, got my arms around that, went to dispatching, went to quoting, got my arms around the financials, the P&Ls. I mean, this was all from reading books and talking to people. And eventually we grew it to, we were in my dad's house for, the first, 2008 to 2000, probably 13, right? So 5 years in my dad's garage. And then we moved out, we bought a building, right? And then we outgrew that about 5 years later, bought another building. In the meantime, we expanded our services from just restaurant equipment to HVAC, refrigeration, expanded from Phoenix to Tucson, then to Houston, Texas, then to Albuquerque. Landed on the Inc. 5000 list of fastest growing companies in America for 3 years, 18, 19, and 20. And in the meantime, in the midst of all of this, I decided to write a book because the opportunity is so awesome in these industries, but nobody knows that it exists. And so I got that, and then turned that into a podcast, and then finally the brand and the podcast of Blue is the New White that spawned from the book led me to Blue is the New White Academy, where we teach business owners and skilled trade professionals how to basically leadership, right? Basically soft skills, how to carry yourself, how to have hard conversations, coach business owners on how to grow their blue collar business. Doesn't have to be just in this field, right? But it's kind of any blue collar field. And that's kind of the nutshell, right? On everything. That was launched on January 1st, and courses are coming out next month.
Yeah, I'm excited for it. So if anyone's seen me on LinkedIn, I like to I get kind of mad at these guys, these talking heads that kind of like they want to tie themselves in with the blue collar guys, but they have no blue collar experience. Because I know there's guys like you that have the experience behind them, that have the know-it-all, that have been in the trenches and have built something, that have the experience that need to, that can grow it. And that's what I want to see is guys like you. I don't want to see some marketing guy that just jumps from, okay, this 3 or 4 years of blue collar, the next thing's going to be this, next thing's going to be this. That stuff drives me nuts because those guys, I feel like, are just taking advantage of the people that actually work and have done it. But, you started off the bottom and you've grown this company. And I want people like you to be on the forefront of leading this charge.
But I appreciate that. And, honestly, Pat, I would challenge that just a little bit. And although I have some of the similar thought processes as you, some of the aspects of what they talk about sometimes frustrates me, especially if they don't know, but it all boils down to intent for me.
Yeah.
If the intent is self-serving for them, I'm on board with you. But if the intent from them is something bigger, is something better, and usually you can tell, right? You can kind of read through the BS. So usually if the intent is, if I see that the intent is there, I'm okay with it because all ships rise with the tide, right?
Yeah. I agree with that 100%.
I agree with that, Josh. It's just when they come out the gate with 10x, 100x, and it's just like, come on. You done lost me, and you might as well say network marketing or something. Pyramids. I don't know.
Pyramid scheme.
There's some red flags, and you think people would know better with how much this is going on, because it's not just going on with the blue collar. And when it's the same talking head, or I'm a multi-millionaire, I'm going to sell you my secrets, and now that person was in this industry, and now they're talking about HVAC, and it's like, well, how'd you get over here? And you were just over there talking about selling knives or something, or a jet.
That's the thing. The amount of consultants that came out of the woodwork when I announced my company, I'm like, no, I'm good.
Yeah, I bet there were a bunch.
You've got two of the best, in your corner between, Josh and Corey. I mean, Corey, we interviewed Corey, and after that show, I wanted to go run through a wall, dude. I was fired up. I was like, man, I've never thought of owning my own company, but this guy talking to him, it's like, man, I want to own a company.
Yeah, see, that was my thing. Yeah. That was my thing talking with Corey. Like, I'd get off the phone and be like, I need to quit my job now. I got this. My thing with Josh is like, I'll be like, Josh, here's my thought process on this. Tell me why I'm wrong. I want you to tell me I'm naive, I'm ignorant, I don't know what I'm talking about. And then he's like, no, that's exactly how it is. And I'm like, dang it, I really need to be out there.
Let me say this. I am happy where I'm at, and I'm not leaving and starting a company. I love where I'm at, my job. I get to do a lot of cool stuff. And at this point in time, I don't feel like starting over. I don't feel like I'm happy where I'm at now. I've got a path where I should be going, and I'm working towards that. But yeah, I mean, just the way he talks about the industry, and he has his passion for it, and Josh is the same way. Just like, I mean, it fires you up. If you have that spirit where you want to learn and do more and do better, they'll fire you up.
Yeah, for
sure. So you also serve on the board at CFESA. So I teach refrigeration for CFESA. It's a great organization. They do a lot of good for this industry. They help, manufacturers connect with service agencies. They help build technicians. The scholarship program. They got a lot of things going on, and I'm liking their content. They're starting to put more out. So I think they need to be on that bandwagon, man. They have hundreds of techs in there every month. Let's show these guys off. Let's show them off back in there working. Let's make sure they're being safe, and highlighting these young guys, men and women in the industry, and they're learning. And let's put us on the forefront, man.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate you bringing that up. It's let's talk about CFESA for a second, right? And have I ever told you guys the story of how I ended up on the board? Maybe one or two of you.
No? I haven't heard it. I want to be on the board one day, dude. That's one of my goals.
Is it juicy?
It's not. You know what? It's not juicy. It's just it. I mean, I think it speaks volumes to the pivot that CFESA has done and is still doing. So, I got a call from Nick Cribb, president of CFESA, and he basically, called me up and said, "Hey, we want you to run for the board." And I laughed. I mean, that was my first instinct is I laughed, and I thought about it, and I was like, man, why are you asking me to run for the board? I've been not like outwardly critical, right? But I hadn't been involved as involved as I probably should have been in CFESA. I didn't really connect with the association in the way that I think that they want their members to connect. And
as a business owner,
and as a business owner, as a person, as a somebody who has a voice in the industry,
a leader in the industry.
So I hadn't resonated with the association for a while, and I told Nick this, right? And I was like, why do you want me on the board? X, Y, and Z, this is all the things. And he said, Josh, I'm going to be transparent with you. That's exactly why I want you on the board. Mm-hmm. And that statement right there, just those few words spoke volumes to me. So I got off the phone, I thought about it, I talked to people, and I felt like I could come in at the same time as a bunch of other next generation board members, right? And really drive change throughout the organization. I can't take responsibility for any of the change, right? But it's just good to be in that room and to feel like I have a voice. And so I can see, what CFESA might look like tomorrow compared especially to what it looked like yesterday. So no, it's to your point, it's a great organization. It's going to get even better, even faster now.
Yeah. I want to get back involved. I was on the training committee, and I just had too much going on. I was trying to launch this, try to do some other stuff, and I want to get back involved. I actually was pitching an idea of a committee to Heather, and I need to bring that back up and try to pursue that avenue a little more. I had the idea of doing like a technicians committee, and we need someone on the board have to be on there, of course, that's just how it works. But a technicians where we could push some ideas from the technicians' viewpoint, or maybe we get technicians involved in some of the other committees. But they have a voice in this industry. We don't pay the CFESA, we don't pay CFESA memberships. We're not on the board, but we are a huge part of the organization. We're the guys out here in the trenches, doing the work. And I think, they have a lot of good viewpoints, and to get some of the guys involved, I think would be really good for the organization.
I agree. Actually, so I'm the liaison for the YPC committee. That's the Young Professionals Committee. I think we have two. They're going to kill me if I misspeak. Either 2 or 3 technicians that sit on that committee.
Really? I'm too old. I wanted on it, but I'm 40. I'm 41, getting ready 42, so I couldn't get on it. So
don't date yourself, man. You don't even got to say that. You're just like, I'm too busy.
I wanted to go to one of their meetings. It didn't pan out, and I was like, man, I'm 40, and Olivia's like, Pat, we'll make an exception for you.
No.
But I love it, man. It's great seeing the younger people on the board. Nick in there doing big things, dude. Nick, I love that guy. His story. He is probably one of the most genuine, coolest people you can meet. I mean, he really is. He's down to earth. He'll talk to anybody like he's known him for years. He's a really good dude, man. I love Nick. So
yeah,
I want to get him on here one day. So if you ever hear this, come on, bud.
Let me say something about Nick, and I've probably said it on the show before. He had a meeting at my old employer, and we had the Region 4 meeting like 2 years ago, and he was up front, and I was up front, and I was on a technician that creates content panel, and I speaking up there, and then he spoke, and man, he left such an impression on me that I like to call him my unofficial food service industry pastor, because when that man speaks about this industry, you want to start jumping around and running around. But he talks about mission, vision, values, and hiring, firing, and operating based on those. Yeah. And that changed my outlook. It made me reflect from my very first job and every employer that I worked for, if they actually ran their business from top to bottom based on those principles and beliefs. And he very impactful. I can't thank him enough. I've had an opportunity last year to thank him and tell him how I felt, and it was very well received. And I just want to put that out there again. And I'm at a new company now, and I'd like to say that it's I feel like I've landed someone really well, based on what he said. So
that's awesome. And I'll let me just even reinforce that by saying that Nick is who he is on the inside and who he is on the outside, right? He brought all of that you just said into CFESA. Not that it never was there or anything like that, but he drives that home in every single board meeting that we have. He truly lives it transparently through and through, and I know he does the same thing with Sam Service. So it's good dude all around, man.
I think that would be a great segue into the post you made earlier about culture.
Oh yeah.
The
buzzword culture.
Yeah,
the buzzword.
That was the talk that I gave at RIFMA in Washington D.C. this year, which was great. That was a ton of fun. That was and it was kind of like, right. It was a little bit going against the grain. Right. We all hear culture. We know the buzzword. We know the mission, vision, values. We know all of that stuff because Google does a really good job of telling us. Right. And every single book that you read, I mean, it almost like, listen, I read a lot of books. And when you start to read about culture, it almost starts to, one book mirrors another. It's like, holy cow. But there's differences when you actually live it. Right. Kind of what you guys are saying is it's not all cut and dry, right? And you're not trying to build a team of robots that all think the same way, but it almost blends into that, the more, you start to read. But it is truly about finding people with different mindsets, different ideas, different opinions, you know, all of this kind of stuff, and truly disagreeing about all of it. Right? That's what builds the culture. That's what builds the business, you know, is friction. So so yeah, that's kind of what the whole talk was about. Just, hey, listen, these are the realities. That's all this buzzwords, that's all great to hear, but you know, in a real world situation, you are the culture. You're the culture, you're the culture, you're the culture, everybody's the culture.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I work for a really big company, and you know, they have a mission statement and culture and stuff, and it seems like sometimes by the time it gets down to the lower levels, it seems like it's just kind of like a poster on the wall. I mean, I don't think that's what it is, but it's what it kind of seems. You know, I love my company I work for. I love our parent company. I love everything about it. I support them up and down. I'd do anything in the world for them. They've given me a lot of opportunities. I came into General Parts broken, lost, and you know, thanks to people like Gary Sherman and some other people, I've grown into what I am now. I've taken pride in my work. I've been given a chance, and I never wanted to let them down. So I'm just going to keep going on that. But it just, you know, I see the sign on the wall, but, you know, it feels like that's not how it's playing out. And I'm like, I want to buy in. I want to be a part of that. But it just seems like it doesn't resonate with the technicians sometimes.
So how can you be a part of it? I'd challenge you on that. How can you change that?
I don't know. I try to, man, that's a good one. You got me there. I mean, I try to live it. I try to instill what I think is right and what, you know, try to live up to that. But that's a good point, man. I never thought of it that way.
That was going to be my question too. Because obviously I've experienced that myself. And, yeah, what, you know, even if it's not just, you know, as an individual technician, how can you be a part of it? What is the solution to getting that, you know, big corporate has their culture and has their mission, vision, values? How does that get, you know, transplanted down to the branch level where, like you said, a lot of times I can feel like just a sticker on the wall? Because, you know, not bashing or trying to talk negatively about anybody, but that's one of the things that I experienced. I would see, okay, this is our core values. And I'm like, but I'm not, you know, seeing that. And again, hopefully I'm not crossing any lines here, but, you know, seems like end of the month, the mission, vision, and values get kind of blurred depending on, you know, it's end of the month and, you know, you need more money. You know what I mean? And I'm not down with that. That's just not how I roll. You know what I mean? So how what is the solution for that?
Well, I'd preface that by saying, number one, it's the hardest thing in the world.
Oh yeah.
I experience it in my own company with multiple branches. You know, and honestly, it's one of those things that it takes repetition, it takes reinforcement, it takes the right people saying the right things over and over and over and over again, and it takes them actually living it. Right? That's the hardest part about culture, is that the culture of a company, the values of a company, you know, may not align with personal values of everybody in the company. They just might not. So how do you get that person to exhibit the values of the company when they're not necessarily 100% aligned with the values that they live by every day?
Especially,
you know,
in this tech culture, this tech shortage, when you need everybody to run the business.
That's right. I'll tell you, there's a rule of thumb, right? Regardless of culture, regardless of mission, vision, values of the person, whatever, if they can check two boxes, right? I believe that you can make it work. And those two boxes are respect and cooperation, right? And I don't mean cooperation like you do what I say, right? I mean cooperation like, let's do things in spirit of the success of the business, right? Let's cooperate with that, you know, and then respect. If you have those two things, you can build off of that anything that you want, right? And so sometimes we have to look a little bit past. I'm going to catch heat for saying this probably, but sometimes we have to look a little bit past the values, and we have to look at those fundamentals, you know, which I do believe are different.
That's a good point. I like that. I'm going to have to take that into consideration with some of these guys. I mean, it's a wild time for technicians, man. I don't know the answer. I mean, you know, everyone has an ad out. Everyone's hiring. Everyone wants that guy that's experience, that guy they can put on the road that's going to crank out calls every day. And those guys just aren't out there. I mean, they're aging out so fast, or they're happy where they're at. They're taken care of, and they're just not.
Businesses.
Yeah, starting their own businesses. So I mean,
some of them have habits too.
Yeah, so it's weird, and I'm a firm believer. I am to the point where I want to go after the 18-year-olds, the 19-year-olds, the 20-year-olds, the people that maybe went to college and they don't feel comfortable with what they came out learn. They can't find a job. Let's find the people that want to learn, that want to grow, and let's teach them. And maybe we have a 20% success rate, but if you have a 20% success rate in that, you're still ahead of where you were before you started.
Yes.
Well, how's that work geographically in your neighborhood versus the city I live in and the town you live in?
Well, we're trying to do it now, but the problem is April and May is not the time to bring in a tech to train. You need to bring those guys in the winter when it's slower and you have the time and the bandwidth to train them and show them things, because once May hits, it's triage season. I mean,
yeah,
I'm not even in a crazy hot environment like, Josh or Jason, you guys are. Jason's in Florida and Josh is in Arizona. I mean, it's hot 11 out of 12 months in Josh's neighborhood. I mean, I don't think he ever shut his pool off this year. So, I mean, it's just, I don't know. I think we're doing some things with the Unlimited Service University thing. I mean, I hope it pans out. I'm seeing some results from it, and I'm anxious to talk to some people about it. I actually have a person that went there and reached out and want to come on the show and talk about it. So I got to make sure it gets cool. But I think there's things out there for people that are new to the industry. But I mean, I think as a whole, we got to do better as far as setting plans for new guys coming in the industry. A path.
Even not to cut you off, but even with that USG University thing, again, right? So USG puts this money into putting these training centers together. It costs a good amount of money to send a technician there, because I worked with a coworker who went there, and in this guy's particular situation, out of anybody that we had that wasn't a tech, he has the most potential to become a tech, and it's because the way he cares about people and the way he's willing to learn. When he rode with me, he asked me, was it okay to film me and take notes of me working so he could go back and study on his own time? One time we were on a job that I didn't know how to do, and he had done the same thing with another tech, and he pulled out his phone, watched the video, and did the job.
That's amazing.
They sent him to the university. He gets back, to the branch, and he's still a PM tech. So it's like, even with that, if it's not being filtered down to the branch level, what are they doing?
It's not a perfect system. I mean, it's going to have its ups and downs. It was designed after what they had in Texas, and it was smaller scale. And we're trying to scale it larger. But I think
I think it's a good thing, because he came back fired up from his training. He's like, I'm ready to go. Let me out there. Let me ride with somebody, whatever. And then it's like, oh no, you're still a PM tech. And it's like, dude, like y'all just spent like 50 G's is what I was told they spent to send him there. And it's like, still a PM tech. What was the point of all that?
Oh, I think there's a time in the season for everything. I'm sure when he gets there, it might be the right time.
Yeah, that's a good thing.
We also got to keep in mind too, like we're talking about USG. We're talking about a multi-billion-dollar corporation,
a different monster.
And to your point, Pat, I think that you're right. I think that there's only so many times we can go through the revolving door of technicians in this industry. I don't care what market you're in. You guys know exactly what I'm talking about. Tech goes from company A to B to C to B to A to C to D to B, and then that's just it's what happens, and we're not going to fix that unless we bring more people into the industry. The problem with that, though, with smaller companies, and when I say the problem with, I don't mean that we shouldn't do it. So don't misconstrue what I'm about to say. But the problem is it costs money.
Yeah,
it costs a lot of money, right? I mean, because every time you bring in somebody new to the industry, it is a sizable investment. And you're just hoping and praying that in this day and age, with this generation, that they pan out and that they actually continue to want to do the work, and they want to advance, and they're willing to work after hours and do the on-call, and or early mornings, late nights. You guys know the drill, right? It's it's up in the air. with a lot of people aside from just the work aspect of things, or the technical aspect of things.
Yeah, that's why it goes back to, I think, the attitude and the willingness to learn is going to be the biggest factor in bringing people in. But they have to be aware of what they're getting into too. You can't sugarcoat it, man. You see these recruiters that sugarcoat stuff, and then they come in and it's a totally different world than what they were promised from that person. A third party person that got the money for getting them hired on. They got their bonus, their money, their bonus, on to the next one.
Rich knows this about me, but I am so disturbingly transparent with anybody and everybody in my company, and I've given him this advice too, right? With other things, but I will give everybody who comes into my company the chance to walk away. I almost make them, right? Because I lay everything out on the line. This is where we're good. This is where we're bad. These are the people that are really nice in my organization. These are the people that are kind of rough around the edges. By the way, this one's your direct supervisor. Right. And anything and everything. This is our culture. This is what, after talking to you, you might like or you might not like. Lay it all on the table, every card that you have. So they never have an excuse if they say yes, that they weren't given what they were promised. And it's worked wonders in the hiring process, because I have people that walk away from the interview. And that's something we say too. Hey, if at any point during these 3 interviews, and we do 3 interviews usually in the course of 3 days, if at any point during these interviews you're not comfortable, walk away. Thank you for your time. And we have people that do that. And those are the people that would have walked away had we not said those things, but not until after we spent the money to onboard.
Yeah. Yep. That's a really good way to be upfront and honest about it ahead of time. I mean, then that saves a ton of money up front. So Jackson Smith has a good point. He said his take on this is why our technicians not investing in themselves. And that's a huge thing for me. I didn't get where I'm at because I just did what, was given to me, 8 to 5 or 7 to 5 or whatever, was given to me. I went out on my own and did things. I know Rich has done things on his own. Jason's done things on his own. If you want to be the best of the best, you're going to work outside of your normal hours to do some things on your own. Now, we're not asking you to learn everything on your own, but it's going to take some you time and investing in yourself to be the top. So,
yeah, you're either a careerist, a jobist, or a professional. You got to pick one of those 3, and that determines how in you want to go. So and with that also, I tell technicians, hey, if you're going to be sent to training, at the end of the day, if the company's paying for any kind of training, that experience and that certification, that's in your pocket. It goes on your resume, So to what Rich was saying earlier, if you have training and you're racking this stuff up, you like to think it's going to be utilized if you have the drive and you're showing that, that you're being intentional. If not, you're building someone up for, you're spending money for nothing. But if you want to invest in yourself, I mean, we all do it. I went to school from 9 to midnight because it was Seattle time for 9 months to get a certification in facilities management because I really, really wanted it. It was years ago, like 2 or 3 years ago, but it finally panned out. But, I begged my job to send me to different certification schools. They sent me to that CFESA. I had explained why, the ROI. But it's on you to explain that you want more, because not every company is even aware of CFESA and different training, things like that. So to what Jackson's saying, you got to be intentional. You are responsible for your own self-development in many stages. And not every company can afford to do what the bigger companies do. So you got to really sometimes just flip the own bill and show that it's worth it.
100%, bro.
I love that mindset. That's something that we actively look for. And to your point, Jason, the challenge there is who's teaching these people, these technicians, how to go about those conversations. The conversation you're talking about, Jason, is not an easy one to have with your employer. I know you've done it, and I also know how well you speak. Right. And how you can articulate your thoughts. No, seriously, this is a real thing. This is one of the whole reasons I started the academy, guys, is because, in these industries, right. And as technicians or frontline employees, oftentimes we're not taught how to communicate. We're not taught how to resolve conflict. We're not taught how to lead. We're not taught what emotional intelligence is. We're left to our own capacities, which, listen, there's a lot to be said, about the comment that just came in. Your own capacities, it is on you 100%. But at the same time, nobody's pouring into these people, not unless they're being considered already for a management or executive or supervisor role. But these skills are exceptionally important to have in anybody's development. They're completely transferable.
I'm 100% open. If someone has a question on, anything, my inbox, DM me, email me. If you have my number, call me, text me. I will help anybody get anything they want to get. I mean, I'll be honest with how I got to where I got. I know Rich will do the same. Jason will do the same. And Josh with the Blue is the New White Academy. I think it's going to be a huge asset. The guys wanting to better develop themselves. Whether they want to be a business owner or just coach them as how to be a better professional. I think there's a lot of opportunities with this academy that's going to help a lot of people out.
And with the academy, I'll say, anybody who's looking to sign up, prepare to be challenged, because that was the biggest thing. I would email or DM Josh and be like, so how does, this and this work? Or how should I go about this and this? And his first thing was, how do you think you should go about this and this? Tell me what your thought process is. And then I'll tell you if you're right, wrong, and why. And sometimes it's like you're spot on. Other times it's, you're wrong. Other times it's you're not wrong, but, consider this angle. And like I said in that promo video I did for you, like when I started, getting mentored by Josh, I felt like my brain was physically expanding, because every question I asked him it was always a challenge behind it. It was never just like, oh, here's your answer. It was like, no, I'm gonna teach you how to figure this stuff out on your own, so you don't need me anymore. Which a lot of mentors, don't do that. A lot of mentors need to be needed. And it's like Josh is like, I want you to not need me anymore. Like, I'll be there for you, but I want you to not need me. I want you to know how to do this.
That should be your only job ever as a mentor or a coach, is to coach or mentor yourself out of a job. I mean, that's really, honestly, that's the way that it should be. And you guys might have heard me say this before, but I'm a firm believer that people accept what they conclude and they resist what they're told. So yeah, Rich, I could tell you yes, no, yes, no, yes, no, but I mean, even if you were to retain that, maybe you challenge one or two of those things and, you never connect the dots yourself. That's the worst thing that I can do for anybody as a mentor or as a coach, is just tell them what to do, give a man a fish, teach a man to fish.
Yeah. Iron sharpens iron.
Yeah. I mean, people don't know, you ought to see our group chat, because I talk with Jason and Rich every day, and the things these guys talk me out of probably have saved my career and possibly my life at one point or another. You got to surround yourself with people that want what you want the goals you want to better themselves. They want to succeed. There's that cliche, that old thing going around the internet, show me 5 people that are successful. You want to be the 6th person around those guys because you want to be like them. But, if you have 5 guys that aren't going nowhere and those are your 5 friends, you're just going to stay there. I mean, I have friends. I'm in trouble for that one, aren't I?
Go ahead, Josh.
Listen, listen, you're not in trouble. I know exactly what you're talking about, right? But I challenge this, and I challenge it hard. One of my favorite sayings in the world is, how you walk with the broken speaks louder than how you sit with the great. And, and when I say broken, I don't mean like, beyond repair, right? I mean, how you lift others up speaks louder than who you surround yourself with. And I think there's a healthy balance, like anything else.
Yeah,
I don't disagree with the notion that you surround yourself with successful people and you yourself will also become successful. But if you're the least successful person in the group, what do you think they're doing?
Right.
That's true. That's it. Yeah. That's it.
See, the way I had it broken down to me years ago, and the perfect example is, for example, so I've got Josh and Corey. They're light years ahead of me, so they're pouring into me. Then I've got y'all. We're more or less, on the same page. We may have different career goals or whatever, but we're about the same level. So while Josh and Corey pour into me, the 3 of us kind of keep each other encouraged and accountable and whatever. But then even now at my 3 weeks of being in business for myself, I've got people reaching out to me like, hey, I'm thinking about starting my own business, and how do you figure out pricing? And I'm like, oh, Josh taught me how to figure out pricing. I'm like, how do you figure out this and that and the other? And I'm like, well, I've learned all this stuff. So even though I'm 3 weeks in business for myself, I can take what Josh has poured into me and pour it into the next guy. So I believe that we always have to have those 3 levels. You got to have people that are pouring into you, helping you grow. You've got to help the people that are equal to you, that y'all are walking, together. And then you've always got to have somebody that you're pouring back into.
I love that. I love that. Yeah. And to your point, Rich, the cone of learning, right? As soon as the best way to retain something, it's all the way at the bottom. The best way to retain something is to teach it. That only helps. That only helps you grow yourself.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Nice. So let's delve into this Blues New White Academy. I want to know more about it. What exactly are you offering to individuals? Say, business people, technicians. What exactly what exactly do you offer?
Yeah, thanks for that question. So it's primarily for business owners in the blue collar skilled trades to license to their frontline technicians or employees, right? So the thought behind it is to provide employers with a tool to help their employees grow. I feel like I can get the most reach out of that, especially with my current network. And the connections that I have in the industry, rather than going straight to the technician or straight to the employee, which we also have an avenue to do. All these courses that are available are also available publicly. So the comment that came in earlier, if technicians are looking to advance their career, their skill set, learn leadership, learn all these different skills. Even the first course we have coming out is understanding the numbers, right? But from a fundamental standpoint, so trying not to kind of dive too deep into stuff, but just give a base understanding of what does insurance mean, and what's the difference between liability and workers' comp, and how do they work, and profit versus revenue and margins. How do you determine part pricing? Little stuff like this that they can begin to pull levers on their own to tweak the value that they bring to either themselves or the organization that they work for. So that's a really long way of saying that it's an online course to develop leadership and soft skills for blue collar skilled trade employees that is being sold to the employers to implement into their organization. Right. There's also a coaching aspect to it as well. We launched the coaching the first of the year. I'm a terrible businessman, guys. I mean, when it comes to this, I just give all my coaching away for free. I mean, listen. I want to help people so bad. That's what I've done. Now, if there's a more in-depth coaching, I'm trying to get the group coaching together, so multiple people in the room kind of bounce ideas off each other, and being more of a facilitator in that way. So we have those programs available as well, and then there's like a one-on-one, coaching thing available as well, both for business owners and career development.
Sweet. So it's for everybody. It's not. I mean, I'll probably get some flack on this episode. Just to be honest, people are going to think that you're out here trying to tell every technician to be a business owner, and that's not what this is at all. There's always going to be guys that want to be business owners. There's always going to be guys that want to be techs. That's just what it is. The guys that want to be business owners want it regardless. They do this, they listen to this, or whatever. If they have that mindset in them, they're going to work towards that goal. You're never going to stop it. So
that's right. And at the end of the day, we as people, let's be honest, we want to make money, right? We want to be as valuable as we can, whether that's for our own business, for ourselves, for our family. We want to increase our value, and that's what this is about, right? And the problem is, like I said before, is nobody's pouring into these guys. They just expect them to know this information somehow, right? I mean, every single time that how many times have you heard, man, if only this guy would do this, they'd be really great. They'd be a really great technician. I mean, you guys have all been in that world, right? And how many times is that not even a hard technical skill? It's a soft skill. Man, if they would just communicate better. Man, if they would just stop yelling at people, or whatever it may be. But the fact of the matter is, we're a product of the environment we grew up in, and yes, at some point we've got to take responsibility for that, but it's also sometimes it's got to be shown to us.
Yeah. So I like that aspect, to teach people how to to teach others, and to pour into others. I hear it all the time being a lead tech that, this guy needs to do this guy needs to do that, and I agree, but it's like, how do we get them to do that? How do we get them to learn? How do we get them to grow? And it takes ownership on both parts. You got to be willing to teach them, but they got to be willing to understand it too,
or at least accept it.
Yeah.
And I would venture to say too that techs don't have, say, like a basic business understanding, for the most part, you could say that they harm the company, but they definitely prevent the company from reaching its full potential and its full capabilities. For me, the best techs that I've known, even if they've never wanted to be in business, they understand business. They understand why parts have to be marked up X amount. They understand why we've got to charge this fee, that fee, the other fee, and they actually take ownership over the company, even though they're just a technician, because they understand the fundamentals of, hey, if we're not bringing in this, I'm not getting my paycheck, you're not getting your paycheck, we can't run vehicles and whatnot. So it is something, in my opinion, that every tech should get a basic understanding of.
My biggest takeaway from CFESA when I went 2 years ago when I won was I taught refrigeration for CFESA, and I was friends with Heather, and she forced me into every single thing I could get into. Like, if she seen me walking down the hallway and there was something going on, I wasn't in it, she drugged me in there. She drugged me in there for communication thing, where it's like you had to come up with a communication thing. I sat in there, Diamond Refrigeration. I spoke with them, and I learned some stuff then. And my biggest takeaway was the financial thing. Like, they broke down, like, okay, if you're going to charge this rate and you're paying this guy this much money, this is how much you can make, or, you have to, if you want to have this profit margin and you pay this, you got to charge this. And that was a huge eye opener for me, because I was very well paid then. And the numbers they were spitting out, I was like, dude, I am a burden on my company, man. I was like, that is wild. That is
I
wild.
think it's the onus is on the company to teach their technicians, because one of the biggest tech talks amongst technicians is how much was spent. And they just bought this, and they have no idea what the costs are and what the company actually, what the ledger is. And I didn't learn that until I'll be honest, I didn't learn that until I became a manager, and then they started including me in the P&Ls. I'm like, well, shit, why didn't you just tell me this from the jump? Because there would have been a lot less chatter and tech talk about things we just didn't understand. But you got to understand, when you don't understand things, your mind creates a narrative and a story, so when we see things being purchased and there's a party and there's this, and somebody went to on a retreat, and we're getting denied for this and that, they should just open it up. I mean, to a certain degree, so people are on the same page. I think you could talk about this, Josh. You were saying something, I was listening, where you were saying that only a certain percentage at the end of the day you get back, and then you try to invest that into certain things for the company. Could you talk about that?
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. You guys are proving my point for me. This is fantastic. I don't got to say shit. No, that's exactly what I'm talking about, Jason. And because if we want here's the grand vision as a company and as an employer, right? If you want everyone rolling in the same direction, you've got to give the education behind why and how we're going to get there and all of that. This financial stuff, this takes time, even at a fundamental level. Like, most people are not exposed to this type of information, but they need to be if they have any shot at manipulating it, right? If they have any shot of actually making it work in their favor, in their company's favor. Because if they can make it work in their company's favor, it's going to work for them. I promise you that, and that's what we're understanding. So example would be like if an owner said to his team, yeah, we made $1 million this year. How many people that didn't have this education would have their hand up saying, well, shit, it's time for a raise?
100%.
But without context behind it, okay, this is what this costs. This is what this costs. This is what this costs. At the end of the day, we're left with $100,000. That's 10%. This is not an unrealistic number. That's 10%, of $1 million, 100,000. Okay, well, we can still get raises with that, but if you want the company to grow, you need to reinvest that back into trucks, into new technicians, into uniforms, into the insurances and the taxes that go along with it. At the end of the day, you're running on fumes, right? Just to grow your business. And this is a high level, simplistic, view of what it is that I'm talking about. But it's eye opening when you put it on paper and you show people, how this actually gets. And then the dots start to connect, right? People resist what they are told and they accept what they conclude. You have to help them connect those dots, right? The other thing is wage. If a tech is making $30 an hour and you're charging $100 an hour, does that mean that the company is making $70 an hour? Absolutely
Never.
not.
Yeah.
No, it's called tech burden, right? It's your wage plus your overhead. I would venture to guess, the last calculation I did, if a technician is making $30 an hour, they're costing the company somewhere around $75 to $77 an hour, right? And so, that's just straight overhead. So you have to take it, and it's also gross margin. We won't even get into cost of goods sold, and G&A expenses, top line, bottom line. That's all gone over in the course in a simplistic way. It's called understand the numbers, and this is exactly why it exists, to help people connect the dots and pull the right levers in their own organization to increase their own worth to the organization itself. So really, really awesome point to bring up, Jason. Did that answer your question, or am I rambling because I've been drinking?
No.
No, that's 100% on point, man. Even the audience is agreeing. Like, this is like they're blown away by like what we're talking about. It's just people don't
with
see
that
it.
too. With that too, with understanding the numbers, I mean, y'all know I'm a person that loves brutal, blunt honesty. Like, just tell me how it is in the worst way you can, and I'm like, cool. And I think when you educate your techs on the numbers, I think you can have that discussion with the underperforming tech and saying, like, bro, you understand how the numbers work, and you understand that we're paying you X, but because of your lack of productivity, because of your callbacks, we're actually losing $15 an hour having you in a van.
Yeah.
So if we don't see a turnaround in X amount of time, we're going to have to let you go. And it's not because we're rude, because we're pricks or whatever. It's because, dude, you're costing us X amount of money per year. We're paying you, 70,000, and it's costing us 100,000 to have you on the road or whatever. But if your tech isn't educated on how the numbers work, I don't think you can have that level of a direct conversation with them on this is why you're not working.
Yeah. Quick, a couple of quick statistics for you guys. So who knows the most important KPI for a technician?
Nope.
Guesses? No. Tech utilization. Have you heard of it?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's something you track, I'm sure, Pat, right?
Yep.
Yeah, so tech utilization is one of the most basic equations, but it is so telling of what a technician can bring into the company. It's hours billed divided by hours worked, right? At the end of the day, that ratio. At the end of the day, that ratio is very, very telling. So the best thing that you can do as a technician from a business owner standpoint is close that gap. Right. And different companies have different metrics and different, what it means. 70%, 80%, 90%, depending on your company, could be acceptable. But that's far and away the easiest thing for you to calculate yourself as a technician, and for your employer to look at to see if you deserve a raise, or if you can advance, or if you're going to get fired. Hey, listen, let's just call it what it is. Right? I mean, these are important numbers.
Yeah.
And then the other thing that I was going to say in that was, I lost it. Keep going.
So Josh, in regards to the 80 to, whatever the percentage is with that, and I live in a city in Tampa, so call is corner to corner. It's Pat drives, has all this windshield time. So does that affect that percentage?
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
absolutely. So each branch in every market should have their own percentage of what's acceptable and what's not. Okay. Even in Phoenix here, we're pretty spread out, right? So just to account for that drive time is important. Now, it also depends, right, on how they bill drive time. Is it zone charges, or is it straight service fees, or is it just hourly? Like, these are charged all different ways. So it does fluctuate, but usually rule of thumb is somewhere between 70% and 85% that's acceptable.
Yeah. So yeah, I really liked where you were going with communicating the numbers, and somebody was explaining it to me that the relationship maybe not this serious between the employer and the technician is kind of like a marriage. You know, there's like 3 things that can damage or ruin a marriage. Finances is one of them. You know, so when the money ain't right, people start speculating, you know, and the company's cheating on me or whatever, you know, or communication is one of the pillars, you know, and things like that, and respect and stuff like that. So just wanted to throw that funny tidbit out there that there's a relationship involved. It is a trade of services. I'm providing a service. You're paying me for it. You know, but we're also representing the company, and, you know, we're the face of the company. There's all this relationship dynamics where we're trusting each other. I'm trusting you to pay me and to be truthful and to have my best interest. And you're trusting me to, you know, be the face of the company and, you know, represent the company and their values and the name on the building, you know, respectfully and with honor and whatnot. So I'm rambling.
I like that a lot. I'm going to use that. No, that's really good. Also, excuse me. I remember the second thing I was going to say. Who on this call knows how much it costs to onboard a technician?
No idea.
Let's call
I think Jackson just mentioned it.
First 90 days. What would you guess? Rich, let's start with you, man. I've been going over numbers with you for a long time. Let's call it a test, bud.
I don't know if we went over those numbers in the first 90 days to onboard a technician. Oh,
on average, let's say you bring him in at like I don't know, $35 an hour.
I'm
gonna say I don't know, so you don't skip me.
Jason's like, wow.
So that's you're messing me up here now.
You got a calculator and a Modelo.
So I'm gonna say, just off the top of my head, kind of using a calculator, 90 days, you're probably gonna be somewhere around 45 grand.
Wow, that was closer than I thought you'd get. It's on average, I believe last time I checked, somewhere around 70.
Dang.
When you take into consideration, now listen, you take into consideration the cost of the van, right? The phone, the uniform, blah, 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 all of that, the insurances, the taxes, the opportunity costs, not only in the interview process, the onboarding process, the advertising of the job, recruiters, if any of the recruiters are involved, right? Then, you know, I assume 2 weeks of training, which is a lot, which is really low sometimes, right? Depending on what kind of tech you get and how much experience they have. But that's 2 weeks of training, right? Lost opportunity costs with that as well. And there's a whole calculation with this, and it's actually all of this stuff is in the course. Every single line item, you know, and how to come up with this number. And it varies. If you're bringing on an apprentice or a PM tech at $22 an hour, it's a little bit different than, you know, a master tech at $40 an hour, right? But somewhere on average in that range for the first 90 days, you're looking at about 70 grand.
Cool.
These are important numbers for people to know, right? Because your technicians in the field, they can do a lot with that. You know, maybe they run one more call instead of saying, well, let's hire somebody else to cover me, right? I mean, there's little tiny nuances and differences like this. You know, it's for the benefit of, it truly is for the benefit of the employer and the technician. You know, it helps that marriage, like Jason said, right? It helps that alignment, the movement toward the mission.
So then that makes this program something that bigger companies, I would say, need to get for management, because when you got managers that are willing to hire anybody who walks in the door, I mean, you hire 3 guys and none of them work out, and, you know, a manager hires them and then you put them with the training tech, and the training tech knows this guy's not worth the crap. He should have never been hired. Well, you got 3 guys. That's 210 grand. That's what, almost $250,000 that was blown because probably the branch manager doesn't understand what it's actually costing him to hire these people.
Bingo. Absolutely. I couldn't have said it better myself. And that's why it's so important to have your hiring processes down, you know, your interview processes. Listen, like in real estate, the deal is won or lost when you purchase. In business, you know, the return on investment from your technician is won or lost in the interview process.
That's crazy, man. That's a lot of great information there. I mean, I never would have thought it'd been that high. That's wild. It's a lot of money. And then, I mean, you have guys, some guys ride with guys for months and months and months. It's just like,
think about that.
Yeah, there was a hiring period not like a year ago where if you didn't jump on the person, they were gone. They had so many jobs. Like it's kind of like the housing market. Sometimes it's a seller's market, sometimes it's the buyer's market. Am I saying that correctly? So when there's a lack of techs out there and everyone's a hot girl or the popular one, the hot boy, and you don't respond to them in a week, they're gone somewhere else. And maybe it's better. Maybe it's better to know that, they're chasing the dollar. But I don't know. It gets pretty hairy when there's just a lack of options, and sometimes you have to roll those dice. I ain't got the money to roll dice like that. That's why I'm not in business. But
I think it allows you to strategize though when you know the numbers, because you can say, okay, do I want to hire 2 new guys, or can we take this same 140 grand that I might waste on these guys? Can we just reallocate that money to the guys we have that we know are solid and good, and be like, you know what, guys, go ahead and pick up an extra call a day, even if it becomes unrecouped overtime, because we're not going to spend $500,000 this year on wasted technicians. That unrecouped overtime make wind up 200 grand that they're putting out, but you still got 300 grand in your pocket that you didn't dump on techs because you're so desperate to pull somebody in who is not going to work.
No, I agree with that 100%. As long as
that's a business mindset, man.
As long as those guys aren't generating callbacks and they're getting completions and their customers are happy, I don't have a problem, of a guy working the overtime, and not being billed. I mean, at some point, you don't want the guy out 7 o'clock every single night, 8 o'clock every night. But if he's doing 10, 11-hour days and he still has a decent balance, his call completion rate's good, his callback ratio is very low, let it be. Let him do it.
100%. That, Rich, you got to the exact right conclusion that you should have, because that's what I was getting to. There's a threshold, right, of when to bring on a technician. And you can only know that threshold when you know these numbers. So yes, you can distribute that across the team, not necessarily in raises, but in overtime. And once you set that threshold that, okay, at X and X hours of overtime or X and X dollars of overtime, right, then it's time to bring on a new employee. It's time to bring on a new technician. So this is the fun part of business, right? The strategy behind it. And, I don't remember who said it, right? But yeah, you got to make sure you don't burn your guys out at the same time. So it is it's definitely a dance, and like we as a company, we put limitations, right? During the summer, technician, I think on-call technicians can work a maximum of 12 hours a day, and if you're not on call, it's a maximum of 10 hours a day. Or there's something like they don't get scheduled another call after 10 hours or something like that, right? Because it's truly a balance. But once you reach that threshold, you know when to bring somebody on.
That's great information.
And then when you get to know your team, you can, strategize better, because, for example, I'm the type, I can work a 15-hour day. I can work multiple. But when I tell you, hey, I'm leaving at 4 today, you need to respect that I'm leaving at 4 today. That's exactly how I was as a technician. And my supervisor, he loved it, because he was like, hey, can you pick this call? Can you pick that call? Yeah, no problem. And I just tell him, if you see me on my schedule and it's 4 o'clock and I'm on lunch, I'm not coming back. Don't call me. But as you get to know your technicians and these numbers, you say, hey, you know what? Rich doesn't mind running, 14 hours a day in the summer, most days he can handle it. I know so-and-so can't handle it. He's not down for it. So Rich is gonna run that overtime. It'll be offset by letting so-and-so work just, 8 hours a day or whatever. And we don't have to hire 3 people to try to catch up for the summer. So, I mean, I obviously knew knowing the numbers was important, but I didn't realize how much you can actually plan and strategize, even at just like I said, like a branch manager level, by accurately understanding how your numbers work.
Oh, absolutely. And you got to be careful of that too, because the culture, right, to what you're talking about, Rich, that's where the culture piece comes in. Because I've told this to everybody that I've ever met, is perception is reality. Right. So yeah, you could be the type of guy that works 15 hours one day and then, it gets off at 4 o'clock another day. But when the other techs see that, what do they think? Do they think about you working 15 hours? Hell no. They see you getting off early and they're like, why can't I get off early? And it's like, listen, it's individual. I'm not generalizing, right? Yeah, I can't ever generalize human beings. I hate that, but sometimes this happens and it's something that you've got to be mindful of, but that's where these soft skills and leadership comes in. How do you communicate that, Rich? How do you communicate that, Pat? That shit's important. Everybody knows what to communicate. Very few people know how to communicate.
I'll be honest here. I've done my company a disservice by always talking about the hours I work, because I do that on myself. They don't force that on me. I work those hours myself, and people see that and they're like, why don't we go work there? This guy's working 60 hours every single week, 70 hours. And I'm like, and people talk to you, I'm like, no, they don't force me to do that. I just do it on my own stupidity. I don't want to leave my customers hanging. I want to take care of my employer. I want to take care of my customers. It takes care of my pocketbook and my dumb spending habits. So there's a balance there. But yeah, I mean,
I can deep, so that makes sense.
Yeah.
But also communication is everything, like we always say, right? Because like at one point when I was at Whaley, they put a board up and it had our callback ratio, first time fixes, but it also put our average hours billed and our average hours worked per day. So for example, people asked me, they were like, Rich, do you ever go home? Because my average hours worked at one point was like 12 to 13 hours. But with that, they saw other guys were 7 to 8 hours. And they saw, oh, well, no wonder Rich is going home at, 4 o'clock today. He worked all day yesterday and did an overnight job. So if you communicate stuff, you're honest and you're transparent, I think it does eliminate that. Like you said, all they see is me going home. Well, if you got a big old board in the back that says, well, Rich worked, 57 hours last week, then like, oh, yeah, I guess Rich deserves to go home today.
Yeah. Hell yeah.
Communication is the key. That's Jason's favorite word. Communication.
And transparency.
Right.
Yeah.
And accountability.
We have been going for over an hour. I mean, we could talk all night. I don't want to keep Jason's probably.
This was fun.
I don't want to take Josh away from his family much longer, but I want Josh to have the opportunity to promote the academy and everything he does, the podcast, the book. I really respect everything Josh has done for our industry, and I look forward to taking some of this academy classes. And I think I'm going to learn a lot, and I think it's going to probably change my mindset towards management and upper level management. It's going to open some things that I probably wasn't aware of that probably gave them a black eye, from my perspective, that they really didn't deserve. But like we said, communication and perception is everything. So I think this is going to open up a lot of technicians' eyes as to what's really going on that the managers don't have the conversation with them about.
Yeah. Well, no, I do appreciate the opportunity, Pat and Jason and Rich, to come on and talk about it. It's a pleasure. This industry, I've found purpose in this industry, guys. Everything that I do and everything that I've done is surrounded. It surrounds this industry, right? I hate when people, they try one thing, it doesn't work. They try something completely different, it doesn't work. They try something completely different. And I am so of the mindset of pick one thing and make it the hell work. And this industry is reflective of that because everything that I've done, surrounds it. So anyway, you can find me on all the social media at Josh Zolin, bluesthenewwhite.com, or if you want to go right to the academy, it's BitNew, acronym for Blue is the New White, so BITNW.academy. It's live. We've got courses coming out right now. We've got the Understand the Numbers course in beta right now. Should be, releasing probably next month or June 1st. And we've got the Blue Collar Hero, which is the soft skill course, coming out shortly thereafter. But I am always an open book, open to questions. Shoot me a message, DM, email, josh@blueisthenewwhite.com. Or if you're looking for a job and you want to join a great company, WCEcommercial.com or WCEjobs.com. We're always hiring good techs, and we try to provide as much training as possible in these areas. So any way, shape, or form that I can help, guys, I'm here to help.
Right on. Well, thank you so much for coming on. It was great seeing Jason's smiling face. I'd miss him. So Jason's got big things going on, and I look forward to seeing what Jason's doing. I love hearing, what he's doing now. He's making a difference. He's just not turning wrenches, but he's making a difference in a lot of people's lives.
He's become really a world traveler.
Yeah, he was on a whirlind this week, wasn't he?
I'm tired, but this was very worth it. I was very looking forward to this, and I'm living the dream. You got to have a plan. If you don't plan, you fail. If I said that correctly, I said that a little short, but I'm working my plan, and I'm happy. I put my 10 years in. Josh put his 10, and I just went to the next chapter that I've been trying to get to. And everyone needs to figure out what they want to do. And if you look at this panel up here, Pat wants to grow in leadership. I wanted to grow in facilities management. Rich wanted to go into business ownership. And we all have a connection together, and we've helped each other in small ways, big ways, whatever it is. We're all on the same path, same journey. And, I appreciate the opportunity to even know you guys and whatnot. So we'll just keep doing what we do and keep the message out there. These are chronicles, Josh, all of us, we're all part of these chronicles.
I love it, guys. I love it.
This is how I always end my part. So.
All right, guys. Have a good night.
Appreciate y'all.
See ya. If you guys would, please consider subscribing, rating, and reviewing the podcast. It really helps us grow and helps us know which direction to move in. Also, if you have any suggestions for guests, please email me at commercialkitchenchronicles@gmail.com. Or if you want to be a guest, email me. Love to have you guys on. Thanks a lot. See you next week.